Definitely, Nadeem, and it's good you raised it, and actually Harini also raised it in Parliament, this whole issue, because we speak about laws and its impact in terms of particular groups, individuals, and with the PTA we a lot of the times look at the detainees. And that's a very important point, because over the decades, now the PTA has been in force for over 40 years, it's had such a significant impact on the detainees and the way it's being used, the abuse, all of that. That's so important to look at. But a lot of the times we forget how families have been affected, how communities have been affected. And Easter Sunday, I think, was a good example. The Easter Sunday attacks and the subsequent violence, and how the PTA, but also other laws like the ICCPR Act, have been used to target, again I come back to a particular group of people, a particular community, and that impact. So Shreen talks about, and several others talk about, how women have been affected in terms of having to become the sole breadwinner, the economic hardships, but also the stigma, the pushback. I mean, the levels of hardships is just very, I think it's very important to look at. But this is also not just post-Easter Sunday, it's been there for so many decades. And I think that's something we need to talk about, because it's in a way it's easier to talk about detainees' rights. And it's a very important issue, but what about the larger segment of society that gets impacted by this? And how do you address that in terms of economic hardships, but also social stigma, but also social hardships? And, you know, recently...
Case in point being the suffering that Dr. Shafi's wife and kids had to go through.
Dr. Shafi's wife, but so many others. You know, we talk about some of the more high-profile cases, and quite rightly, you know, you talk about Dr. Shafi, you talk about Hijaz, you talk about Aknaf, and very rightly, they were targeted.
But there are so many others who've been there.
And so many others, hundreds of others, some lost in the system, some detained for decades, that get forgotten. And I think that's very important to look at the other cases. But, you know, I also want to just say PTA has been abused and for decades, but also look at other laws. ICCPR, Ramzi Raziq's case is a good example, a well-known case, but there are others. But how the penal code also is being used, you know.
Even Shaktika Satkumar.
Exactly. So there are so many other laws that are being used to target individuals, but at the same time I want to put this also, how particularly individuals. Now, incitement is being the reason they say some people are being arrested and detained using PTA or ICCPR. But how some individuals, particularly from the majority community, are not facing that same reaction. So what I'm saying is that particular communities are getting targeted, but then also the selective use of the law to target individuals, to weaponize it in terms of particular groups, particular individuals and critiques. So I think that's a point that needs to be.
Dr. Priyanjali, I think